chimpanzee and chimpanzee society, one of the things that was shocking to her was how chimpanzees eat meat. Because up until that point, everyone thought, and it's interesting because if you ever watched The Planet of the Apes, remember that Charlton Heston, the other Charlton Heston movie? Planet of the Apes, all the apes were vegetarians. They ate fruits and stuff like that, but they never ate meat because it was understood that chimpanzees were vegetarians, and it's not true. In the wild, they eat meat. They're actually at times cannibals. They will eat the young of their own tribes for the protein. We also know from the records of early fossil hominids that they hunted mammoths, rhinoceroses, they ate meat. Okay? Now, why am I bringing, what does this possibly have to do with anything, Chip? Well, I think this helps explain a very curious thing about our Adam and Eve story. Genesis 1, 29, 30, and 2, 15 through 17 says, "You may freely eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden." Remember that? Yes. No mention of meat. Hello. This implies that they had a vegetarian diet. Adam and Eve originally had a vegetarian. They would eat of the fruit of the trees, except for the one of knowledge of good and evil, right? Now, ever wondered why? Ever wonder why?
Why?
Well, I'm going to offer a suggestion. We know that they were omnivores. Chimpanzees, early hominids were omnivores. Why the change in diet when God infused the soul into this one hominid creature and made him a man as we understand it today? Why only fruit when up to this point, if we understand our evolutionary theory, they were omnivores? Here's a suggestion. This is a suggestion. This is Chip, the private theologian. Don't go saying the Catholic Church believes this because you're a liar and you'll have to go to confession for lying. This is Chip, the private theologian. Got it?
Yeah.
This is my thinking on this. I think that this is God's way of trying to distinguish us from our animal ancestry. God was teaching Adam and Eve to separate from where they came from to being uniquely human. By changing their diet, yes. You're no longer animals with a human soul. You're sons and daughters of God. The accent is falling off of your animal instinct and more on your godlike nature.
Well, that stops the creation of man. It goes into evolution. We're speaking only of evolution in this. But if he's creating man, and he doesn't tell him, I'm speaking as a vegetarian.
Right. I understand.
And I want, and that's hard for me to understand, that I accept evolution.
Yes.
And I also accept the creation of man in his purity as man.
Yes. And what I'm suggesting is that when God gives the command to both Adam and Eve to eat freely of the trees of the fruit of the garden, he doesn't say, make sure that when you kill a lamb and have lamb chops tonight with your nuts and berries, that you do it this way, like he gives in the Levitical law. Because it's implied that they didn't eat meat. Adam and Eve were to eat meat. They were only to eat of the fruit of the trees. Right? And the prohibitions and the restrictions on meat-eating diet that we see in the book of Leviticus, and even before that with Noah on how to eat meat, is sort of it's one of those laws that says can indulge in this at this point, but you have to be obedient to me. I'm seeing in the original creation a greater distinction. God is pulling us up out of being human animals to being human beings with God. And this is a sign of that. It's a distinction from our animal ancestry. It's a way to distinguish us. The accent should be on being a son of God, a daughter of God, not being a rational animal. Not just being an evolved animal. And I see this in looking at our day and age nowadays. I kind of reverse it. I think nowadays we see a trend in our society to think of ourselves as human animals, that we're no better than animals. And so we should be able to have sexual liberties like animals do. I mean, animals will mate with all other animals and not have any distinctions. Chimpanzees do this to a degree. To a degree. There is some fidelity in chimpanzee society because it's a way of bonding alpha male with alpha female. But in truth, the alpha male, if the alpha female isn't producing offspring, will go to a secondary female. And there's no concept of marriage or fidelity. This is true of cats and dogs and all other animals. There's no sense of fidelity. There might be to some extent with some animals, but for the most part, they don't have any, they're indiscriminate.
With birds.
Well, like I said, in some cases there is a level of fidelity, but for the most part, there isn't. And what does God expect out of human relationships?
Higher.
A higher standard. Till death do you part? That's not true for animals. Do you see what I mean? So when we look at something like marriage, God is expecting something more out of us than what we would be expected if we were just animals. Do you see what I mean? And why? Because we're expected to go beyond our animal nature. God is expecting us to control our desires. Not just sexual, all elements. We are to be in control of our lives, our bodies, our minds. Animals are not. They're driven purely by instinct. When it's time to mate, it's time to mate. When it's not time, it's not time. You see what I mean? When and I heard this from one of my teachers at Biola long ago, and I always thought about it. Humans eat in order to live, but animals live to eat. That's a distinction between us. Okay? And God calls us to a higher level. We are to be better than our animal instincts. We are to rise above them. We are to employ our spirit, our soul should be more in control than our bodies. For animals, their bodies are their souls. They eat, they mate, they eat, they mate. They eat, they mate, they eat, they mate. That's all that they do. We are more than that. And I would suggest that the initial vegetarian diet given to Adam and Eve was another sign of that distinctiveness. The original one. Now, does that mean those who are vegetarian are more like Adam and Eve? I don't know. No, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. No, that's not it. But it's now not a matter of what we eat or drink, as Jesus will tell us. The kingdom of God is not about eating or drinking. It's about love. And that's something that animals do not have. I know we think our dogs and our cats love us, but if we are truly honest, that is an anthropomorphizing our animals. They don't have that same kind of capability of love as another human being does for us. That's why when Adam was looking at the animal kingdom, what did he find? No suitable helper. That's another reason why God created woman. She is able to love him the way that he is able to love her, in a way that a dog, a cat, a zebra, or a chimpanzee cannot. As much as we love them, as much as they love us, it's different. It's not the same. It just simply isn't. Okay? Everyone good? No one traumatized yet? Oh, good. So, again, I want to offer this as a suggestion. I'm not saying it is, as a suggestion to the possibility as to why the original diet was simply vegetarian. Yes?
So, just to paraphrase, so the suggestion is that I guess God elevated us above animals and in the sense of love being that extra step.
Yes.
Our compassion to animals, not just God's compassion to us to set us apart, but our now innate compassion for animals and other living things and not wanting to eat them?
Not necessarily. It's to have dominion over them. God gave us original dominion over all the animals. He still does. I mean, we still have an original dominion over the animals. But that you could extend that as well. That just because we're elevated above them doesn't mean that we exploit and misuse them. What is the thing that Dennis Prager says, and I love it, and I never thought of it.
The dog. Would you save a stranger or the dog?
No, he says something more about if a human being is cruel to animals, he tends to be cruel to other human beings.
Yes.
However, human beings that are kind and compassionate to animals aren't necessarily kind and compassionate to human beings. Adolf Hitler probably loved his dog. Right?
Right.
Charles Manson probably loved his dog. Right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. This movement in our society for this over anthropomorphizing of our pets and our animals to the point over human beings is a form of this idolatry that we're going to get into where the animals are above us. And the truth is, it's the other way around. That, again, does not mean we exploit and misuse and maltreat the creation and animals. That's abhorrent. And certainly God is not for that. Nevertheless, just because you're nice to your dog doesn't mean you're kind to your neighbor. You see what I mean? So we got to keep the perspective. And all of this has to do with our understanding of where we came from. Here we go. If you thought that was bad, here we go. Great. Put on your seatbelts. Here we go. All right. Click them in. Bring down the bar. Hold on. I have to mention this. I was trying to avoid it, but I can't.
Or mature.
According to the Bible, is woman inferior to man? No. The short answer is no. However, let's pack for this trip, shall we? All right, I want to see how many people leave the Monsignor Gallagher Hall after this. I love this. This is from Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Do you see this? Where is Eve like stepping out of? His side. I love this. It's not that God took a rib and made Eve. She's literally out of the side of the sleeping Adam. I love this. I think it's a great image. This is more along the theology of what Genesis is talking about. So Michelangelo gets a thumbs up for me on the creation of woman. Okay? And I love that her orientation is towards who first? God. Okay? Now, in the past, theologians have argued for male superiority of creation on 3 points. In other words, men are better or more superior to women on 3 points: conception, place, and will. All right? What do you mean? Well, conception. Adam was created first, Eve second. Get over it. All right, you ready? All right. All the men are like, place. Eve was created to serve as companion and mate to Adam, not the other way around. Know your place. What is your place? Position would be another word for this. These are technical terms that theologians in the past have used to state these principles. Man is superior to woman by conception, place, and will. Place, position. What position is woman in relationship to man? Well, she was created clearly from the text as mate and companion to man. All right? Now, hold that simmer down. Just wait, because there's a flip to this. I'm getting to it. And will. Eve's will was weak, which allowed her to be seduced by the devil. So these are the rationales theologians in the past have used to support the subservience of woman to man. Conception, place, and will. But you just said, Chip, according to the Bible, woman is not inferior to man. That's true, she's not. Well, then what is this? This is a misuse and a mistreatment of the text, because I can show you the opposite of this. Seems pretty clear, right? Man superior to woman. We move on.